Hello, eighth grade parents. I'm Mr. Fry. Welcome to virtual back to school night. Sorry we can't do this in person, but I do look forward to hopefully meeting you at some later time. So, a little bit about me. As you can see, I have a very, very large family. I have 6 children, and as such, I attend a lot of back to school nights. And when my wife and I do a back to school night, we have to go to 3 different schools. And at those schools, we have to divide up and get to as many of the kids' teachers as we can because there are too many of them for the two of us to tackle. So, one common theme that I've noticed in back to school nights is that they tend to be repetitive. They tend to be a little dry. So, my goal is to not be that. I don't want to be repetitive and dry. I want to try to be a little bit more interesting in my presentation. So, I'm not going to necessarily focus on all the same things that some of the other teachers focus on. A couple of things you need to know, similar to the way I want to do my back to school nights, that's the way I want to run my class also. Unless they're weird, your kids will have fun in my class. If any of you are too young to remember the Life cereal commercial with Mikey, that is the kid who's sitting there looking at the Life cereal. He likes it. Mikey likes it. So unless they're weird, your kids will have fun in my class. And if they are weird, they will probably have even more fun because I am pretty weird. When kids leave my class at the end of the school year, my goal is to have them thinking critically and deeply, being thoughtful about their opinions, their decisions, and I want them to be expressing original thoughts and ideas clearly. And I also want them to enjoy learning. So, in terms of what students should be doing every day, they should be checking their email. Otis will notify them of new emails from their teachers or lessons that are posted. They should check the announcements and class board in Otis. Um, the Zoom meeting calendar will be posted on the class board and in their bookshelf. They need to make sure that they're clicking on the correct class period for my class and for any other class they're in. They need to check lessons to make sure that they're doing everything that's been assigned to them, and to check assessments for anything that needs to be done and turned in. And when they check in Otis in the beginning of the day, all of these things will be there for them. This is a daily agenda example. It won't always look exactly like this, but during normal school, I have this projected in the classroom, and I will put it on Otis too. I used to put it on Google Classroom. Now it's just posted in Otis every day. There's an 8-point grading scale. This is not a drill. Unlike the last time, grades actually count. We still have the 4 levels of mastery, except that there's a high and low level within each of those levels of mastery now. And that gives you a little more specificity in communication, and it gives me a little more specificity in how I'm grading. So some things that we read in my class, we read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. That's the only thing we read as a class. We have a dystopian literature unit where kids have options. They can choose between The Giver, Fahrenheit 451, and several other dystopian novels. And as we're doing that unit, we bring in those novels that they're reading independently. We bring those into the conversation in the class as we talk about dystopia. Then we do a Holocaust literature unit, and we talk about Anne Frank. Night is another one of the options for reading. And like with the dystopian unit, we bring those novels that they're reading into our conversations that we're having about the Holocaust and the literature that was written at the time. We also read short stories, we read poems, we read a lot of news articles, and we talk about all of those things that we're reading together in class. Sometimes we have debates. And the most important thing that they read during the school year is their independent reading. Your child should always have an independent reading book to be reading when they don't have anything else to be doing in class, and to be reading for 20 minutes each day. So as you can see, John Rambo is a big Harper Lee fan. He really likes To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm pretty sure he read the sequel also. So be sure your child is reading a book of their choice at least 20 minutes a day. And we're going to talk about why we read independently. Why is this so important? If there is one thing you can do to help your child succeed academically, especially in language arts, but in every class, it is reading independently. Kelly Gallagher said, "We believe in the value of challenging books, but when students only read core texts chosen by their teachers, read-aside occurs." Now, if you look at the etymology of the word read-aside, it's not a real word, it's made up. But you can probably figure out what he's talking about. But read-aside is giving up believing that reading is anything but meaningless work. And this is something that we see with a lot of kids. It's not new. I'd like to think that it's because they all have screens in front of them, and maybe that's exacerbated the problem. But this problem has existed for a long, long time. There are adults who don't like reading too. The bottom line is that kids need to be reading something that they have not been assigned to read. The research on this shows what happens when kids read for 20 minutes every day. Student A is on the left there with lots of books. He reads 20 minutes a day. Scores in the 90th percentile on average on standardized tests. Student B, the one with some books, average of 5 minutes per day, and scores about the 50th percentile on standardized tests. Student C, there's only a few books there. He reads 1 minute per day. She reads 1 minute per day, and scores on average in the 10th percentile on standardized tests. And I am no novice to statistics, so I understand that there are lots of variables here. We could say the student A reads 20 minutes a day, but he also probably has a certain focus on education in the home that helps him too. But the bottom line is, if we want to achieve higher, we need to behave like those people who achieve higher. So having your child read for 20 minutes a day is going to push your child in the right direction. This is another quote from Kelly Gallagher. He said, between 1996 and 2006, the average level of literacy required for all occupations rose by 14%. Both dropouts and high school graduates demonstrate significantly worse reading skills than they did 10 years ago. So as of 2006, which I know that's kind of old at this point, the reading levels were going down, and the need for better literacy in the job, in the workplace, was going up. So we have two things that are going in opposite directions, and we need to try to turn that around. The last slide that I'm going to be on my soapbox and talk about reading is about empathy. Keith Oatley said, when we read about other people, we can imagine ourselves into their position, and we can imagine what it's like being that person. That enables us to better understand people, better cooperate with them. And no matter what side of the political spectrum we're on, I think we could all agree that people have kind of forgotten how to disagree with each other. So if we have a little more empathy, maybe we'll get better at that. Students aren't just going to read. This is a language arts class, and they will be writing. Students will write every day in my class. Sometimes they'll be 2 minutes, little tiny, get your ideas on a piece of paper writing assignments. Other times they'll be writing for 2 weeks if they have an essay and they're going to be going through a step-by-step process. And they will have opportunities to revise and edit major writing assignments. I try to go really slowly when we're doing big writing assignments so that they can focus on each little aspect of it and become better writers. Some of the different things we'll be doing quick writes. They will be writing blogs, and then we'll do the formal things like essays, stories, things like that. Just a couple final thoughts. Check Otis often. Power School, you don't really need to check it anymore. Just focus on Otis. Attendance is being taken, so your student needs to be there in the virtual meetings or doing the work. If they're not going to be able to do so, it's just like if they were going to be absent for a school day, you need to call the office. Work completion, the work's required now, grades are being given, and your students should be engaged in the learning process. the last thing I'll say is Otis is new to you. It's also new to us. We're still learning this program. So if you would please bear with us, and with the distance learning, it makes it that much more difficult for everybody. So we're making the best of it, but we are going to be having some stumbles and some failures. So please bear with us. And if you have any questions about anything, please email me at lfry@rcsdk8.org. It's on your screen. That is an L, not an I. My first name is Logan. And I will try to respond to your emails as quickly as possible, okay? Especially if it's a problem with Otis or something that needs to be resolved immediately. And I thank you for your attendance at this virtual meeting.